All right. We have talked about the history of Mexico and Central America, which are very similar, and you will find the same in the Caribbean islands. We said that in Mexico, it started by native people, then came the Maya, then the Aztecs, then the colonization. And we said what are the procedures was done under colonizing, then we moved to the independence and the revolution. Also in Central America, you find the same. You find that they have the Mayan civilization. Then we move to the colonization and the independence. Here you'll find the similarity between the history of Mexico and also the history of Central America. The history of the Caribbean islands. We said that the difference between the islands and Mexico and Central America, that these islands are actually vary in size and the vary of people who live there. Some islands are very big and other islands are very small. Some islands have a lot of people living it and other islands have actually very small group of people living there. Some of them are independent and some of them are still till today as a colony for one of the greatest countries such as Britain, France, and other countries. So you'll find if we have a variety or a diverse size people and diverse in the diverse ruling system, what can you predict you'll find there? Who can tell me what kind of people you'll find there? Uta. Uta.
Miss Sally, can you please repeat the question?
I will repeat it again. Okay, if we have a variety or diversity in the size of the islands, people living there, what other factors or what other things you can find in people who are living there? They will be different in what? Bomika?
Yes,
Yes, answer the question.
please say the question again.
I'm repeating the question for the third time. Yeah, Bomika, please concentrate. I said if we have diversity in the size of the islands and we have diversity in people who are living there, what can you find in people?
We will find many religions and many different people.
I can't hear you, Abomika. Raise your voice.
We will find many different religions and many
Of
different
course, you'll find very different religions. Huh? Hannah Hani, complete.
You will find different religions, cultures, and languages.
Thank you, Hannah, very much. You'll find different religions, different customs, different cultures, and also different languages because they vary in size. They are not similar. But let's start by reading indigenous people and European settlers. Hannah Hani, please read.
Okay, Miss. History of the Caribbean islands. The history of the Caribbean islands is similar to that of Mexico and Central America. The islands have greater diversity, though because several European countries ruled them as colonies. Indigenous people and European settlers. Europeans changed the way the native people of the Caribbean lived. Like the Native Americans of the mainland, they suffered from the disease carried by the European. This is why their numbers declined sharply soon after the arrival of the Europeans. Overwork and starvation also reduced their numbers. The Spanish set up colonies in what are now Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and the Puerto Rico. Later, the French settled in what is now Haiti and on the other smaller islands. The British and Dutch had some colonies too.
So at this part, he just implementing or he just explaining what we have just said. He said that we have variety of islands. That's why we have indigenous people are living there and also many European settlers. We said the same, that Native Americans are actually were living in mainland, and they have suffered a lot while living there. Then they have suffered from European diseases and starvation because they were working in plantations with very low wages. But actually, the Spanish set up colonies, which are now known as Cuba and the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. So the Spanish were mainly in Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. French settled in Haiti and on the other islands. The British and the Dutch had some colonies too. So, who can tell me about which countries were settling down in the Caribbean islands? Which countries and where? Uta, you're back?
Yes, Miss.
Tell me which countries were settling there and in which areas.
The Spanish set up colonies in Cuba and the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and the French settled in Haiti.
And what other countries?
British and Dutch has some colonies,
All right.
but not
So
mentioned.
let's move to colonialism. Talk about the colonialism. Hannah Yasser, can you read?
Yes, of course, from colonialism, right?
Yes.
During the 1600s, the Caribbean colonies became the center of the growing sugar industry. European landowners hoped to make money by selling the sugar in Europe. Because so many Native American workers had died, Europeans bought in hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans to work the plantations. The transport of enslaved Africans was part of the Columbian Exchange. This term refers to the transfer of plants, animals, and people between Europe, Asia, and Africa on one side and the Americans on the other. Foods such as wheat, rice, grapes, and apples were introduced to the Americans, as were cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. At the time, products from the Americans were introduced into Europe, Africa, and Asia. They included corn, chocolate, and the potato. The Columbian Exchange was also resulted in the introduction of new diseases into different parts of the world.
So what's very important about colonialism, it's the same as we've mentioned yesterday, but what's is important that after setting the colonies and growing the sugar industry, Europeans have made a very important move, which is called Columbian Exchange. What's meant by the Columbian Exchange? Who can tell me? What's meant by Columbian Exchange, Laura?
It's when they transfer the plants, animals, and other stuff to the other side.
Especially the enslaved African Americans, which were helping in the plantations. Thank you, Laura. Actually, they were exchanging animals, plants, and Europe and the African enslaved Africans in order to work in plantations. They were moving them between Europe and Asia and Africa on one side, and on the other side were the Americas. What kind of products were exchanged or moved? Hannah Hani?
Yes, miss.
What kind
The,
of products? Yes.
for example, the food such as wheat, rice, grapes, apples, and for the animals, it was cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. That's it. And they included corn, chocolate, and the potato.
Thank you very much, Johanna. So the Columbian Exchange actually was very beneficial for both sides because it was moving lots of stuff, but it has one defect or one con. What was it? What was the defect of the Columbian Exchange? مهاد مهاد شعبان مهاد Okay, Mahi Shaban.
Yes.
What was the defect of the Columbian Exchange?
One minute.
Waiting.
American products were introduced into Europe, Africa, and Asia.
Mahi, I'm talking about the defect. What was wrong with the Columbian exchange?
Okay, 1 minute.
I'm waiting.
I'm not sure.
Tell me what you sure of.
I don't know the answer.
I don't know, you're not sure يعني. فرح محلب?
Yes, it spread diseases to different parts of the world.
Thank you, Farah. Actually, it helped to spread or the introduction of diseases that are coming from Europe to different parts of the world. Thank you. Mahi, please read Independence.
The first area in the Caribbean to gain independence was Haiti, then called Saint Dominic, led by how do you say the name? To Saint Louverture. Haiti gained its independence from France in 1804. The Dominican Republic won its independence in 1844. Cuba and Puerto Rico remained Spanish until 1898. When Spain lost the Spanish-American War, it gave independence to Cuba. Puerto Rico passed into American hands. Other islands of the Caribbean did not win the right to self-government until the middle of the 1900s.
So the independence was similar. Some countries or some Caribbean islands gained its independence. Actually, from France at 1804, the Dominican Republic, 1844, Cuba and Puerto Rico remained Spanish till 1898. But when Spain lost the Spanish-American War, it was given independence to Cuba. Puerto Rico passed into the American hands, and other islands of the Caribbean did not win the right to self-government until the 1900s. But after that, all of these have taken their independence. Let's move to turmoil in the 20th century. Laura, would you read, please?
Yes, miss. Independence did not mean freedom or prosperity. Rule by the caudillos and widespread poverty have remained a problem in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Cuba too was often subject to dictatorial rule following its independence. Then in 1959, revolutionaries led by Fidel Castro took over. Castro soon cut all ties with the United States. He said his government would follow the ideas of communism. Communism involves government control of all areas of the economy and society. His rule did not bring economic success to Cuba. The other islands of the Caribbean have had their own difficulties. Some countries in the region are trying to improve conditions and bring economic benefits to all their citizens. Small and with few resources, they have been unable to develop strong economies. Many of the islands depend on aid from the governments that used to run them as colonies.
So actually here, we said that independence, they mean freedom or prosperity. Maybe they're freedom from the colonies, but they still have their own issues or problems. What are the issues or the challenges that have faced the Caribbean islands? Who can summarize them? Who can tell me the first challenge? Adham Sadat, tell me one of the challenges.
Okay, miss. 1 second. At first, Cuba faced a dictatorial rule after it gained its independence. And then in 1959, Fidel Castro led some revolutionaries and took over the country. Then he cut all the ties that Cuba had with the United States, and he decided to follow communism.
So this is number one of the most important challenges, that Cuba was actually led by Fidel Castro, and we all have studied before about Fidel Castro, that he cut all ties with the United States, and he was following the idea of communism. And communism, of course, involves a governmental control on all areas such as economy, society. But actually, even when he led all of these aspects, he did not bring economic success to Cuba. Okay, this is number one challenge. Number two challenge, Ana Hani.
Um, when the Rocodius had widespread poverty, it was a problem in Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Yes, actually, we said before that the Quadrilles are, which are the military people who are or who were protecting the foreigners' rights in order to gain power. Their problems has increased, and they didn't bring economic benefits. And unfortunately, they have suffered from poverty. Okay, and they have suffered from poverty, and they weren't able to develop the strong economies of the island. So these are the main two challenges here. This is all about the history of Central America, the Caribbean islands, and Mexico. Anyone want to ask any question about the lesson?
No, thank you.
All right, I have only Abdurrahman. Don't forget today, Abdurrahman Abu Talib, today inshallah at 1, I will open the link. It's the same link, ya Abdurrahman, okay?
Okay, miss.
So don't forget at 1, inshallah. Anyone has any late homework? I sent for everybody who has late homework. Anyone has any late homework?
Miss, I sent mine.
I know,
you.
I've received them. I've received them.
Miss,
Yes.
Miss, I joined from another device. Can you admit it? And I will leave from that device because it's low battery.